Hey y'all, it's Nancy, the Handy Scandy. Thanks for joining me for another crafty venture. Doing something totally different today. I am going to be doing some faux dip dyeing on some ATCs. I end up turning those ATCs into a set of cards, but initially we're starting with ATCs. So I have my, I believe it's Stonehenge. I show it here in a second. They're like little pads, and I got them online. There was a package of, oh my gosh, I don't even know how many. There was Yupo, there was hot press, cold press, craft, all different types of paper. It wasn't all just watercolor, but it is from Legion, and really happy with these papers so far. But that's what I pulled out today to play with. And also I have my Gansai Tambi watercolor palette, and the idea behind dip dyeing is this gradient of color, not necessarily an ombre, but a gradient. So you want to go from really, really light, barely there, to super dark and bold. And so here was actually a really good gradient, but for some reason, okay, so here we go, Legion Stonehenge Aqua Cold Press. I think it said cold press. And then my Kuretake Gansai watercolor palette. And so for whatever reason, in this moment, I decided that that wasn't quite enough of a contrast between that kind of second or third layer, and I added more. And clearly that's too big of a jump. So I don't know, when I was painting though, it felt right, so I just kept on going with it. But I really struggle. In fact, I struggle a little bit with all four of these panels. And I'm leaving everything in. I have a lot of it sped up, and if I'm just taking too long, I've of course removed that. And I only show the heat gun, the drying in between the layers on this first one. On the other three, I take that part out altogether because I actually spend more time with the heat gun trying to dry that watercolor than I do with the actual painting process. So yeah, it's kind of lots of different follies, but it is a learning process, right? This is my very first time. So I understand the concept, but sometimes concept and realization aren't always the same. But where I feel like it's not quite dark enough, I might add a second layer, or I might just go in with a little bit darker color and kind of mix them. And in this case, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get a good blend that's between these two colors. But because there's too big of a jump between my top two colors, in my mind, I just can't quite get it right. So I come in and I paint it down, then I remix my colors, and then I paint it again, and then I dry it, and I still don't like it. So I paint it again. But ultimately, in the end, I feel like I've resolved my problems, at least most of them, and I'm happy with it. So again, as I always say, be kind to you, be gracious to you. You know, talk to yourself like you would to someone that you love, and use that same level of encouragement, because especially when you're learning something new, I mean, we're not expected to know it. We're not expected to already have that skill if it's something completely new. So keep that in mind and be kind to you. Oh, again, I'm leaving in all of my follies so you can kind of see my process in trying to get to the right color blend. You can see how I fix things. You can see sometimes I just kind of go on to the next thing and come back to it when I have fresh eyes or a thought about how to change it and make it different. So something to consider though as you get to your darker colors. When I've seen Christina Warner do this, she often will mix with black towards the end, and sometimes even come in with pure black for that very last row. So just kind of know what you want your ombre to look like, I would say, and then that will help you to know how to blend. Because if you're going to go all the way down to like a deep blue or deep green or deep purple or even a black, then those are the colors that you want to be blending with. Whatever your top color is, your barely there color, yeah, you want to be blending that with the black. And here's where I bring the black in for this one. And in the end, the gradient is fine. I'm not mad about it. I do wish that I would have been I don't know, had fresher eyes, I guess, in the beginning. But again, it's not a big deal. It's just a thing. So just count that as learning and keep it moving, right? So I'm almost done with this panel. When I move on to the others, we'll probably just have some music, and I will pop back in if there's something notable that I want to share with you. But really, this is my process for all of them, trying to keep the barely there at the very top and the super deep and bold at the bottom, whether it goes all the way to black or whatever color I choose to end with. One thing that I want to mention is on these first two, I'm really just doing one layer, and then I'm coming in with the next layer and the next layer and the next layer. The way I understand it should be done is you cover the entire panel with each layer. So for the next one, it's going to be green and then red. So I do those second two panels that way. I do it green all the way down, and then my next layer, I come in from wherever I start the second layer, and I go all the way down. Third layer, all the way down. Fourth layer, all the way down. And I understand why you would do that, so that you're getting the true blend. But for me, with the watercolors, it kept reactivating the watercolor, and they blended too much. So I really had kind of a struggle with those. And you can see that I'm struggling with the yellow to get the right blends as well. But you know, it's my process, and I show myself grace, and I actually come in and just kind of paint over it all together here in a little bit, because I don't like the way it's going. It's too much the same. You know, these last 3 or 4 rows are, I mean, there's, even on camera, I see very little, if any, difference. So, and then I try too hard here, but yeah. So what I would love to know from you guys, a couple things. One, have you ever done faux dip dyeing? Have you ever done real dip dyeing with like fabric or something? Let me know what that process was like. And 2, do you have a preference with these 4, whether it's just the panels or the finished cards? Yeah. And you know what? I guess the third question, if you choose to answer any of them, my third question would be, what is that internal voice like for you if you feel like you've messed something up or it didn't come out the way you had planned or intended? How do you talk to yourself? Because I would encourage all of us to be kind. We need to be just as kind to ourselves as we are to anybody else. So with that, I am going to put on some music and we'll watch. And like I said, I'll come back maybe if there's something notable that I want to share. But otherwise, guys, I will meet you downstairs in the comments. Of course, I thank you for spending some time with me. And here we go. Okay, so here's where I have what I think is a plan on how to fix that yellow panel, because it was just too harsh of a change there, and it still kind of is, but it's okay. And could you tell the difference between the green and red, the way I was painting them versus the way the pink and the yellow were painted? The reveal is always the best part, even when there are smooches, even when it bleeds through. It's so satisfying. Love it. So there they are. You can see my taping wasn't perfect, and like I said, I've got the smooches. The paint gets really thick down at the bottom, really thick, especially when I paint the entire panel. You can see how the top is literally barely there, and then it's really thick at the bottom. And this one too. This one had a hard time. Those colors in the middle still aren't gradiated very well, but these are the cards that I end up making, and I do essentially the same thing, a little variation on a theme on all of them, but I have the card base, and then I have that panel. It is cut out. Both panels are cut out with the Sprinkles rectangle die from Whimsy, and then I have done some dry embossing with a stencil from a Colorful Life Designs. I can't remember the name of it, but I'll list it downstairs. And then I used an ATC die from Whimsy to cut out the actual dip dyed panels, and then of course I did some heat embossing, and I used some confetti from This Calls for Confetti, and on some of them I used some red and white baker's twine, or red and white, black and white, and then I used just the solid black on the others. So fun, guys. This really was a fun process, and this was kind of a mindfulness journey for me, if you will. Anything that causes me to kind of learn something new and be present to learn and hone those skills and to be kind to myself. For me, those are mindfulness moments, and I love them, and I don't feel like I have enough of them. And when I do have them, you guys know I like to share them with you. And even though this wasn't done as a mindfulness video, I hope that it kind of resulted in that for you in the same way that it did for me. But again, guys, drop me some comments downstairs. Let me know your thoughts. If you can go back to the questions that I asked earlier. What's your experience been? Things like that. And how do you treat yourself when your results aren't exactly what you wanted? So guys, I will meet you downstairs in the comments. You know I love to connect with you down there. And until next time, guys, go ahead, like, subscribe, all those things. But I will be back very soon. And until then, mwah, I'm out.